This is CNN.
Gracias, se pasaron, viejito. ¡Atención, mira el corazón! ¡Se hace ahí! ¡Sí! ¡Sí, sí, sí!
Mario's the pulpit of the second miner pulled to safety, leading the cheer. No mistaking his joy. I mean, he was just glowing, pumped. It was hard to believe he'd spent more than 2 months underground. And we saw over and over as the miners were pulled out just how resilient they seemed and how happy, obviously, after all they'd been through. Few of us, of course, are ever going to come close to experiencing what they have experienced, thankfully. Not even Bear Grylls, who's host of Discovery Channel's Man vs. Wild. He's made a career out of testing his own limits. We talked by Skype about what it takes to live through such extreme conditions. From a survival standpoint, what really stands out to you about this story?
It's such a long period of time, you know. It's hard to kind of get a grasp of just what it must be like to be underground for that amount of time. You know, I've kind of endured, storms up mountains, being stuck in snow holes for long periods of time, but you know, we're always talking kind of days rather than weeks and months. And, you know, I think just, the reality of what these guys have gone through is going to take a long time to recover. And I think what will happen is there'll be a massive euphoria initially of those outpouring of emotion. But it's actually that's the honeymoon period. You know, the hard time I think people will find for the survivors will actually be a month or two down the line when your body and your mind starts to process a lot of the emotions that you've kept the lid on all that time underground.
The other thing that really stands out to me is that, especially those first 16 or 17 days after they realized they were trapped, when they weren't sure if rescue was coming, they weren't sure if anyone was going to be able to find them. They're in pitch black conditions. They're in a room about 600 or so square feet. There's 33 of them. That's got to be the toughest time, even for guys who are used to being underground, just not knowing if anyone's going to actually find them.
Really terrifying, and I think one of the hardest emotions to deal with for the survivor is the not knowing whether rescue is ever going to be able to reach you, not knowing if anyone's looking for you. You know, those are really hard emotions to deal with. I think once they realised, there was a glimmer of hope, however small that glimmer was, then you can start to set into that routine. But that initial not knowing must have been very frightening. I think also the fact that your senses become deprived of everything we take for granted, like light, warmth, sleep, rest, even things like family, love, children, you start taking all of that away from people, and stuff happens, and I think all emotions get very heightened. So the good emotions, the bad emotions, things get blown out of proportion, and I think for these guys, if they pull this off and they survive this, it's something they should be so proud of, and what an amazing experience for them to go through.
And for those first 16 or 17 days before the drill got to them, they were basically surviving on little pieces of fish. I read mackerel and tuna that were already in the mine, and also obviously water. How long can someone go just on that kind of a diet?
Well, you're into survival food then, but your body can last up to like 40 days without food. They're on very limited rations. They can survive a while, but again, it's measured in weeks. The important thing for them was water, which they did have, but again, it's you're really reduced to basic levels in life, and you gotta just admire that fortitude and that courage and the way they must have had to work together, and it just shows that human beings, when we're really put up against it, actually we're all survivors underneath it, regardless of how we often see ourselves, and we struggle with this or struggle with that, but actually when we're squeezed, we're like grapes. You see what we're made of, and these guys should be really proud. Wow, what an amazing journey.
Is this an experiment you would want to try on your show, being underground for this long?
No, 3 months, wow, that's full on. No, I'm at the end, we tend to take about 5 or 6 days to film a Man vs. Wild, and at the end of that, I'm well ready to get out of there and get home. So I admire these guys so much, and I've been praying for them, and I'm so glad to see them on their way to safety. I once went 3.5 months without a shower, and it took me about a month to smell normal again, so I don't know what these guys are going to smell like at the end. But what a journey, and I'm so glad they're on their way out.
Bear Grylls, appreciate your time. Thank you.
Take care.